southern and eastern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Another very cold night is on tap before a warm-up begins tomorrow, but that warm-up will only last through part of the weekend. Meteorologist Eric Dean has our first look at the forecast. Eric.
That's right, Steve. We had plenty of sunshine today. Temperatures were cooler as compared to yesterday. Take a look here at our tower cam at the WYMT studios, and we'll go through time and take a look at the day. Not a cloud in the sky. We had wall-to-wall sunshine, but that was kind of Mother Nature's gotcha moment, if you will, because remember, we were cooler today as compared to yesterday. We only made it into the 20s and 30s. 28 was the high in Jackson. Moorhead only made it to 23. 31 was the high in London. 34 in Williamsburg. Middlesboro checked in with a high of 37 degrees. And right now we're seeing temperatures in the mid to upper 20s and low 30s. We're at 30 in Whitesburg, 28 in Hazard, 31 in London. Middlesboro's at 34. The warm spot, if you will, looks like Jacksboro checking in with 37 degrees. In the past 24 hours, we're between 2 and 11 degrees cooler as compared to this time yesterday. We had that front push through, which obviously dropped the temperatures and shifted the wind out of the north and northwest. And like I said, you factor in that feels like temperature, feels like 18 in Wise, 23 in Moorhead, 28 in Hazard. So your planner for tonight, we're going to drop down to 19 degrees for the overnight low. Here's how we get there. We're going to stay in the 20s with clear skies till we get to about the 1 o'clock time frame. Clouds will start to thicken as we go throughout the overnight hours into the first part of your Thursday morning. But as Steve mentioned, it's not going to last in terms of near normal temperatures. There's a big change coming. We'll talk about that in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. In Rockcastle County, state police and several fire units responded to a semi-truck on fire today. It happened on southbound I-75 just past mile marker 62. At one point, the fire was so large, smoke could be seen on the traffic camera. One lane of the highway was blocked while firefighters put out the flames. Police say no one was injured. The cause of the fire is still unknown. At least 25 people have died from those wildfires in Southern California. The Los Angeles area fires have destroyed more than 12,000 structures and charred more than 60 square miles. Officials say more than 82,000 people in Los Angeles County were under evacuation orders. Coming up in our next half hour, we'll hear from a Kentucky native who is helping to put out those fires. State Senator David Yates proposed legislation again that could add exceptions to Kentucky's near-total abortion ban. Senate Bill 35, also known as Hadley's Law, would allow women to get legal abortions in cases of rape and incest and medical emergencies. Senator Yates filed an identical bill to Hadley's Law in 2024, but it did not make it out of the General Assembly. Under current Kentucky law, the only legal exception to allow an abortion is when the mother's life is in danger. A half dozen of President-elect Donald Trump's picks to head up his administration are answering senators' questions as part of their confirmation process, including his pick to be the next U.S. Attorney General and Secretary of State. CBS's Natalie Brand has more from Capitol Hill.
At her confirmation hearing, President-elect Trump's Attorney General pick Pam Bondi made this promise about leading the Department of Justice.
Politics will not play a part.
Democratic senators pressed the former Florida Attorney General, who also represented Trump during his first impeachment trial, on her independence.
You'd be willing to resign if ordered to do something improper.
If anyone asked me to do something improper, and I felt I had to carry that out, of course I would not do that.
And she was asked about President-elect Trump's pledge to pardon January 6th defendants.
Let me be very clear in speaking to you. I condemn any violence on a law enforcement officer in this country.
Bondi's confirmation hearing is one of 6 Wednesday. Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio testified about what he views as one of the greatest threats to the United States.
If we don't change course, we are going to live in a world where much of what matters to us on a daily basis, from our security to our health, will be dependent on whether the Chinese allow us to have it or not. That's an unacceptable outcome.
Rubio was also asked about Trump's interest in taking control of Greenland and the Panama Canal.
The Chinese basically have effective control of the canal anytime they want, because if they order a Chinese company that controls the ports to shut it down or impede our transit, they will have to do so.
In another hearing room, John Ratcliffe made a case to lead the nation's top spy agency.
Collecting the truth, intelligence, critical information, so that American people can be free. Their freedom and liberty are dependent on the CIA doing that job and doing it in an apolitical way.
The flurry of hearings tees up the Senate to start voting on confirmations as soon as Trump takes office. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Governor Kristi Noem, Trump's pick to head the Department of Homeland Security, was also scheduled to have her confirmation hearing today, but it was delayed until Friday due to some missing paperwork. Changes could be coming to tobacco products. The FDA has proposed a limit on nicotine levels in items like cigarettes and cigars. Previous studies show lower amounts of nicotine can help people smoke less and in some cases quit altogether. The proposal calls for capping nicotine to 0.7 milligrams per gram. Comments from the public can be made about this during the next few months. Officials say the finalization process for the rule could take years to complete. After more than 1 year of war and several months of negotiations, Israel and Hamas have reached a deal to end the war in Gaza. This despite reports of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying a deal had not been finalized. CBS's Rami Inocencio has the latest from Tel Aviv.
Celebrations on the streets of Gaza with word of a breakthrough deal after 15 bloody months of war. Negotiators in Qatar announcing a ceasefire and hostage release agreement between Israel and Hamas.
And this deal will bring us peace, hopefully, at the end of it.
As soon as Sunday, Hamas could begin handing over Israeli hostages to Israel, bringing new anticipation among friends and families in Tel Aviv's hostage square. President Biden claimed the success.
This is the ceasefire agreement I introduced last spring.
In the deal agreed, phase 1 would last 42 days, with Hamas releasing 33 hostages, including women, the elderly, and sick. In exchange, Israel would set free dozens of Palestinian detainees for each. Israel would also pull back to Gaza's perimeters, and humanitarian aid would start flowing again, something civilians in Gaza have been desperate for. In phase 2 of the agreement, another 42 days, Hamas would release the remaining hostages, alive and dead, with the focus shifting to rebuilding Gaza and who will govern it in the future. This brutal conflict was sparked by Hamas-led invasion of southern Israel on October 7, 2023. More than 1,200 were massacred, more than 250 others kidnapped and taken into Gaza. In retaliation, Israel's military has obliterated much of the tiny strip in its avowed goal to destroy Hamas. But after 466 days, more than 46,600 men, women, and children have also been killed, says the Hamas-run health ministry, with thousands more believed buried under the rubble. Rami Inocencio, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
The agreement still needs to be approved by Israel's parliament, but is expected to go into effect in the coming days. President-elect Donald Trump, whose envoy was involved in the talks, wrote on social media, quote, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East." TikTok could go offline in the United States soon due to its Chinese ownership, and some American social media users have already found an alternative. The so-called TikTok refugees have made RedNote the most downloaded free app in the United States. The app, which is also owned by a China-based company, allows users to share short-form videos, photos, and texts like TikTok.
We should have the right to go to all of these apps, and we should have the free speech in America to do this. Like, that's what we are based on.
Congress passed a law last April requiring TikTok to cut ties with its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, or face a ban in the states. That law would take effect on January 19th unless the Supreme Court steps in to stop or delay it. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, auto insurance increase